So hi everybody, really lovely to see you all, and thank you so much for joining us this lunchtime at the start of Soil Challenge Week. So Soil Challenge Week, just to put it in some context for you, is a collaboration between Pasture for Life and Soil Mentor, and it's a way for us to encourage and support our members to start thinking a little bit about their soils. And two really good times of year to do that are in the spring, so now, and then in the autumn time. So you may remember, you may have been involved in the Soil Challenge Week we did back in October, November time, slightly later than ideal, but we had some sort of capacity and weather issues that were leading us down to a particular date. But this year, we're really excited to be kicking off this Soil Challenge Week today. We recognize we're right in the middle of lambing and calving, so it's not maybe the most ideal time. However, it is the ideal time to start digging holes. So hopefully there'll be an opportunity at some point this week to have a look at what's going on in the soil on your farms. And if not, then you can have the opportunity over the next couple of weeks or so to maybe pick up on some of the thinking that we're going to share this week. So it's going to be a very informal, this is a very informal session. It's just basically to get us kicked off, to go through some of the plans that we've got in terms of the soil samples and the soil tests that we want to do this week. We're trying to keep things as simple as possible, and also just to have the opportunity maybe to answer any questions you might have about how to use Soil Mentor, how to access the app. If you don't have the app, then that's fine. You can still take part, and you might just want to record your findings somewhere else. So whether you are a spreadsheet aficionado or you've got a notebook, either way is fine. It's just about kind of recording and monitoring what you're seeing. So I think what I might start off with is just to kind of talk a little bit about Soil Mentor. It'd be interesting to know how many of you have the app. So at the bottom of your screen, you should see a reactions button. And if you click on that, there'll be a thumbs up. If you are already using Soil Mentor, or you have it, but you're maybe not using it very much, could you click the thumbs up just so I can see how many of you? So that was reactions and then the thumbs up. Great. Dave is using Soil Mentor, or you can just wave at the screen if that's easier. I don't mind. Martin's using Soil Mentor. Brilliant. Okay, so we've got a couple of you using it already. So if you're not using Soil Mentor, I might just explain a little bit about the app, and then we'll go into the different tests. Sadly, Abby Rose, who founded Soil Mentor as part of VitaCycle, isn't able to join us today. Oh, sorry, more people just coming in. Abby can't join us, so you'll have to put up with me, I'm afraid. If there are technical questions about Soil Mentor that I can't answer, then I will make sure that I take those away and get answers from Abby. But I do use the app, so hopefully I'll be able to answer some of your questions. So I'm going to, I think, probably share my screen. And then I can just go straight into showing you the app on the website. So bear with me while I do that. Jenna, would you be able to keep an eye out whilst I'm screen sharing for anyone that comes in and let them in? That would be brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay. So there we go. And I'm just going to turn my video off so that the internet doesn't fall over. Awesome. Okay. So Soil Mentor is an app that allows you to go out into your fields. You can set up the map of where your fields are prior to going out and about. You can make sure that you've labeled all your fields and you know what you've got kind of in your account. And then you can go out into your field and undertake some soil tests. So you open up the app, you can go into any of your locations, you can identify what soil test you're going to do, you can then do your testing, and you can use GPS while you're out in the field to identify where you've done those assessments. And then once you've started testing over time, you'll be able to then download reports that now allow you to observe and analyze patterns. So all of this would be using the app. As I said, if you wanted to undertake these soil tests without the app, that's fine. But what's great about the app is that it also gives you little how-to guides as well. So if you're out in the field and you think, oh God, I've forgotten what it is I'm actually doing today, or I can't remember how to do this particular test, then in the app has links to lots of different information on how to undertake the test, which is super helpful. And obviously it also means, because you'll probably have your phone in your pocket quite a lot as you're out and about. I use it a lot for just taking photos and recording what I'm seeing in fields, particularly from a biodiversity point of view. So I often use the app to record different flower species, but it can also be used to record different wildlife as well, or different birds. So it's really helpful to start building a picture of what you've got on your farm, particularly if you're thinking about changing practice over time. It can give you that baseline, and it will then allow you to sort of track what's changing as you go forward. So I think what it's great about it, you can use Soil Mentor to record data that you would get from sending off soil samples. So if you're taking soil samples, you're sending them off to a lab and you're getting that information back, you can add that into the app. But it also allows you to undertake your own testing as well through some of the tests that we're going to talk about today. So it kind of keeps it, you're in control of what you're doing. You're not always relying on other people to undertake assessments for you and then not really understand what those results are. And that's where the Regen platform comes in. So the Regen platform was developed with Nicole Masters. And if you haven't read her book, For the Love of Soil, I thoroughly recommend that you do, or get the audio book version. It's brilliant. And Nicole worked with the Soil Mentor team to develop the Regen platform, which creates a dashboard for benchmarking. And basically it allows you to put in all of the assessments that you're doing, put in your results, and then over time it will give you a much more detailed benchmarking of other farms in similar in a similar sort of setting with similar soils and similar weather patterns. We will also be able to, if you join as a Pasture for Life member, and you then go into getting the Soil Mentor account, we can then look at how you can then see how you compare to other Pasture for Life farms as well, which is really interesting. But one of the brilliant things about the Regen platform is that it then gives you guidance and suggestions. So it will see the patterns that you're developing and that you're recording, and then it will give you recommendations for practice change that might help you move your soils towards better health. So I really think that the great thing about the Regen platform, it's not just about recording, but it gives you that intuitive kind of guidance on next steps as well, which is really helpful. So yeah, I mean, you can use Soil Mentor as a member of Pasture for Life by using the discount code, which we'll share later in the week. And that allows you to access it for £80 cheaper than the normal 280 for the Regen platform. And you can then be part of the Pasture for Life biome, as the Soil Mentor team reference it, which means that you can then look at the different results compared to other farmers. So that's a bit about Soil Mentor. And I think I'll pause just briefly there if there are any questions about the app, and then we will go into the different soil tests. Sorry, I'm scrolling around, which probably isn't very helpful. But yeah, does anyone have any questions before we jump into the different soil sampling or soil assessments we're going to do this week? Just unmute and shout if you do. No? Okie dokes. Okay, right. So in terms of the soil tests that we are encouraging folk to do this week, we're just saying do 4. So you can dig one hole, and you could just dig one hole a week, or you could dig multiple holes on different days. But for that one hole, we're asking folk just to undertake 4 tests. The kind of the top 4 tests. We were going to go for 3, but we couldn't decide between 2 of them, so we went for 4. And these are the 4 kind of key tests that give you a very quick and an easy way of assessing what's going on with my soil health right now. So the first one would be an earthworm count. So if you dig your hole, the first thing you can do is doing your earthworm count. Or actually don't do your earthworm count first, because you'll be pulling the soil apart. But one of the tests is earthworm count. One of them is rooting depth, so maximum rooting depth for the 80% of the roots. The third one is riser sheath, so actually assessing the coating on the roots. And then the fourth one is legume nodulation, to see if that how active those nitrogen fixing legumes are. There is another test which doesn't involve digging a hole, which is the basal ground cover, which is one of my favorite tests, and is something that actually I think is easily something that can be missed when we think we've got really good kind of grazing management systems in place and things are going well, but we might not still be seeing the progress in our soil health that we want. Often it comes back to actually how much bare soil is there on the surface. So the basal ground cover one is a kind of bonus extra that you can add in if you want to. But yeah, as I said, the 4 tests that we're going to focus on this week are the legume nodulation, riser sheath assessment, rooting depth, and earthworm count. So those 4 give us a very quick overview of what's going on in our soils. And they're fairly easy and quick to do. So I'm going to go through one by each one of those 4. And you'll see that here on the Soil Mentor website, it has all of this is available whether you have the app or not. So don't think, oh God, I've got to write down what she's saying now. You can come back to the Soil Mentor website and all of the guidance is available on here. So this is dead easy to find. So if you come onto Soil Mentor, and at the top it says soil tests. If you click on that, you'll be able to scroll down and you'll be able to see the different tests. You'll see there's lots of others on here that we're not going to be doing. And that's not because they're not valuable or we're not interested in them, but we thought these were the easiest that needed the least amount of equipment for you to be able to go and immediately do this week. So let's start with the rooting depth. Oh, hang on, where has it gone? There it is. So rooting depth 80%. So this allows us to assess how deeply into the soil our plant roots are getting. Oh, I can see there's a question in the chat. Oh, thanks, Jenna. There's not a question. Jenna's putting the link in really helpfully. Thank you. So 80% rooting depth is the measure of the distance that plant roots can pass through the soil unimpeded. So we want to see how far down to 80%-ish of the roots get to. So it's not the maximum rooting depth, it's 80%. So, you know, what depth are those 80% of those roots getting to? So what we're recording is the measurement of that depth in centimeters. And we probably also want some photos as well, because I cannot stress this enough that taking photos when you're doing your soil tests is so helpful, because you can come back to it later, you can make comparisons, and all of these photos you can store in the app or you can just have them on your phone and label them. But it's the most useful thing to have these photos saved. And then the only bits of equipment you need is a spade and then your measuring tape or a ruler or some other, if you have there are some knives that, you know, you might have out with you on the farm that have the measuring down the side, have like a built-in ruler, like pocket knives that you might be able to use that, or measuring tape. But yeah, spade and a measuring tape or ruler of some sort. And it's a dead easy test to do. So the first thing to do is to dig out a section of soil. Now, it makes it sound more complicated here because it says dig out a section of soil under plants with your spade. But essentially, when you're digging a hole to do any sort of these soil tests, you get your spade and you dig 3 sides of a square. So you just put your spade in, you put at 90 degrees and at 90 degrees again. So imagine 3 sides of a square have been dug in, and then on the side that is opposite the undug side, that's where you put your spade in and you lever up the soil and then you pull it off. So we don't want to dig all 4, we don't want to put the spade in on all 4 sides, because that means that we don't get a kind of naturalized, if you like, side of the square, because it would have a cut through it. So we want to dig 3 sides and then kind of lift the soil up and pull it away so that the 4th side is more reflective of actually what's going on with the soil structure, as opposed to having a spade slice through it. And if that's difficult to understand through my poor description, then we can maybe go through that in a little while. But that's the first thing you do. You dig out that section of soil. So you've got your clump of soil, probably with a load of grass on the top. And then what we're going to do is, with a ruler or a measuring tape, record the depth at which you estimate 80% of the plant roots are concentrated in the soil, and record that number in centimeters in Soil Mentor. There will likely be outlier deeper roots, but you can discount them if more than 80% of the roots stopped at a shallower depth. So you're looking into your soils, and you'll see that there's a video here which explains what you're going to be doing. So you can see, I won't play the video because my internet will definitely fall over if I try and do that. But you can see here, here's the soil, and Annie, who's doing the measuring here, will just look at, right, where's 80% of the, where is the, 80% the majority of the roots getting to, and then taking that measurement. Now, in quite long grass like this, it's probably going to be fairly, I would say maybe 10, 12 centimeters, something like that. If you've had very short cropped grass, particularly if you think about set stocked sheep fields over winter, you might get 2 or 3 centimeters. So you're going to get real variation depending on how that land has been managed, particularly how it's been managed over a longer period of time. So that first thing we're going to do then is, once we've dug our hole, we're going to measure our rooting depth at 80% of the roots. Catherine, you've asked a question about the app working without signal. I'll come back to that in a second, but thanks, it's a really good point to ask. So once you've taken our rooting depth, what we're then going to do is have a look at the roots themselves. So there's our rooting depth. So that's that one done, easy. So if we go back to our other tests, the next one we're going to do is our riser sheaths. So the riser sheath is the coating of the soil particles that basically stick to the plant roots. Rather than the plant roots being white, it makes them look brown. So if you've got white roots, then you don't really have a riser sheath. But if you have brown roots, then you have that indicator that there is biological and microbial activity happening in the rhizosphere. And the rhizosphere is that kind of zone around the roots. And the soil particles stick to the roots by biotic glues, which are secreted by microorganisms. And it's basically aggregation in action. And that demonstrates how soil aggregates are being built in front of our very eyes when we're digging these pits. So you can score your riser sheath. So again, you've dug your hole, you've already dug your hole, so don't need to worry about that. And maybe some gloves, because you're going to be handling soil. So it's always good practice to have your gloves on. When we're recording, if the roots are white, then we would give it a score of 0. If there are no, what you're looking for, Nicole Masters talks about the dreadlocks, like the roots looking like dreadlocks, like they're really thick and kind of, hanging off the bottom of the plant, covered in soil. But if there's no presence of soil on the roots, we'd be recording it as a 0. If there are some roots coated and some of them have either partial or full coating, then we would score it as a 1. Or if all of the roots are coated, or most of them are fully coated, we would score it as a 2. So we're saying the riser sheath score is either nothing, it's a 1 where there's an in-between, or a 2 fully. Now, this doesn't have to be accurate for everybody all of the time. What we find is, when we're generally kind of using these assessments, because we tend to, once we're doing them over time, we develop our own consistency. So don't worry too much about, oh God, is it a 1? Is it I mean, 0 is obvious, but 1 to 2, basically, if it's partly coated, it's a 1. And if it's really coated, it's a 2. And there might be times where somebody would rate it as a 1 and some as a 2. But generally, the more you do it, and what's important is it's for your farm and your context, you will develop consistency in your judgment. So don't worry too much about getting it perfect. Just go with what you think you're seeing. So that will give us an indicator of the activity and the health of the soil around that root zone. Again, if you scroll down, you'll be able to see here. So for example, we've got, this is what you're looking for. So these are the kind of dreadlock roots that Nicole Masters talks about on the right-hand side. In the middle, you can see that would still probably be counted, is one of those ones that, like, oh, is it a 1? Is it a 2? We're not sure, because actually, that one on the right is definitely a 2, but that one in the middle For the type of plant that you've got and the type of soils that you've got, then maybe actually, you might be counting that as a 2. And over here on the left could be a 1 or a 2, depending on what else is going on with the other roots in that clump. So you're kind of looking at all of the roots as a clump together. As I said, don't get it, don't worry about getting it totally accurate. You'll develop that consistency the more that you do it. Again, the instructions are here. So break the soil away from the roots lightly and shake it so loose soil falls away. And then what we're looking for is that soil that is attached around the roots, and then doing your recording. Again, there's a video of Annie doing her rhizosheath score. So do come back to the website to look for these resources so that you can have a bit of confidence about how you're doing these assessments. So we've done our rooting depth, we've done our rhizosheaths. The next one that we're going to look at is the nodulation of legumes. So I'm sure many of you know, probably all know, that legume plants fix nitrogen in the right conditions. In fact, many plants fix nitrogen, but this is primarily looking at the nodulation of legumes. And oh, I think someone's just honking their horn outside my house. So bear with me just one second. Yeah, I've got a courier has appeared, so I'm just gonna have to disappear for 1 second. Just bear with me while I deal with this. Sorry, 2 seconds, folks. I'm just gonna pause. I'll be back. Sorry, everybody, multitasking today. Apologies for that. So going back to legumes. So as we said, nodulation of legumes, these plants can fix nitrogen, and obviously we want nitrogen to be fixed in our soils because it helps support nitrogen cycling and healthy soils, and enabling those other plants to grow as a result of that nitrogen being fixed into the soil. It really depends on the kind of plants that you have as to whether you have a high scoring root or not. So for example, and a lot of this relates to arable plants as well, so not necessarily just thinking about what we might find in our grazing pastures, but the information around what numbers you're looking for per plant for things like vetch, field pea, beans and lentils would be 50 or more, and then for example, chickpeas would be 10 to 30. There's not many people growing chickpeas. So again, kind of doing this in autumn and spring is the best time, and trying to get that ideal weather conditions so that it's not really, really wet or when it's super dry. Again, guidance here. So you've already dug your you've dug your hole. You've then pulled out that clump of soil. You've measured your roots, you've looked at your rhizosheaths, and now what you're going to be doing is washing a bit of that soil from the roots. Sometimes you can see it very clearly without, but it really does help you kind of see the color of the nodules if you just give them a bit of a rinse. And you can see the scoring here is around not only how many there are, but also the kind of color that they are as well. And generally, you'll find that the more you have, the greater the color of the kind of reddy pink color that you get. So if you have, this is what you're looking for, these kind of nodules, these little kind of round balls that are attached to the roots. And if I just scroll down, I think there's some more photos. No, there's not. But again, there's a video that has been taken giving guidance. But what we're looking for is if there's only a few small nodules and they're right high on the roots, so near the base of the plant, essentially, just as it comes into the soil, then that would be poor. If there was some small nodules high up on the roots, it would be moderate. If there are nodules across the root profile, so they go deeper into the root, and that when you cut them open, they're a pinky color, and they can also look pink before you cut them open, you'll see a pink tinge. You would count that as 1.5. And then if there's lots of nodules across the root profile that are pink or red in color when cut, that's very good. So that would demonstrate a high level of nitrogen fixing from those plants. So we're scoring from a 0, 0.5, 1, 1.5 or 2, lots of photos. Again, these numbers are really useful when you're looking back and you're recording change, but actually having those photos there, that's the key thing that's really going to help you to kind of see the change as you're doing this over time. So that's our nodulation of legumes, and that shows us how effectively those plants are fixing nitrogen, and that gives us an indicator of how healthy those plants are and how healthy that soil is. Okay, so then the final one that we're going to ask you to do this week, or we recommend, is the earthworm count. Which is my favorite one. I absolutely love this assessment. And it's because earthworms really are such a great indicator of life in the soil. And, they're easy to see, they're easy to count. Some of them are really little, so you do have to kind of pull the soil apart. And we know that those high numbers can be an indicator of improved soil health. There are also 3 different earthworm types. And you can use this guide. This is very simple: leaf litter, topsoil, deep burrowing. So the leaf litter ones will be right at that point where the kind of bottom of the plant turns into soil, and you'll tend to find them, they're quite small sometimes, kind of burrowing around in there. Just below that, you'll get your topsoil worms, which tend to have that pale band around them. They're a bit lighter. And then the big deep burrowing worms much lower down. So if you're interested in the different types of worms, there's lots of resources that are linked through this website to be able to find that. But ultimately, just having a number of how many there are is going to be a really useful thing to see change. So once we've done all of our rooting assessments, what we then are going to start doing is pulling that soil apart. So that soil block that we've cut out of the ground, we're going to start pulling it apart, and it's really useful to have a tray or a bin bag or a old feed sack or something that you can use to do that on. So you pull apart the soil onto that space, and that just allows you to kind of sort through it a little bit without losing worms down into the sward. And then it's useful to have a kind of little tray or a pot or something to pop those worms into. So as you're pulling the soil apart, put your worms into some sort of tray. As they're live animals, they will escape. So sometimes it's quite handy having it with kind of higher sides. Otherwise, you might lose some of them out. If you just have a kind of shallow tray, they'll disappear. They'll be off. So if you kind of have a deeper, the thing I really like to use is those kind of deeper dishes or like containers that mushrooms come in from the supermarket. They're quite good. So an old mushroom container from the supermarket is a perfect worm holding pen. So once you've pulled apart your sample and you've put all of your worms that you found, and you will really have to pull it apart, there's not going to be much of that soil block left by the time you're finished. So really, really pull that apart, particularly around the leaf litter bit. That's where a lot of those little leaf litter worms hide, and you really have to pull that apart. And then you can count them back out into a second container. So yeah, you're kind of, as it says, you're making your hole, putting the soil on the plastic bag, keep breaking down that soil, count them, and then record in the app. And you can separate them into the types, and then you've got your adults and juveniles if you want to, counting the different types of leaf litter, topsoil, and deeper earthworms. There's a note section in the app that allows you to do that. If you don't have to do that, if you want, you can just count them, how many are there, and record that in the app or on your notepad and paper if that's what you're using instead. It's always really useful to take photos as well, as we keep saying. Getting the pictures of how many there are, again, the different types, is useful as a reference point to come back to. There is also this alternative mustard extraction, which is basically where you're kind of putting mustard on the ground, and then the worms come up through the ground. But yeah, I mean, if you're digging a hole, you might as well do it the other way anyway. And also, this is you kind of have to repeat this a little bit and leave it and come back, and it's, yeah, I would say it's less, I'm less of a fan. I would definitely prefer to go with the dig a hole and count how many are in that hole. And as I said, there's some really good other resources that are linked on here. So I'm going to stop sharing, turn my video back on so I can see you and you can see me. And I'm going to, before I pause, just answer the question that Catherine asked about, does the app work if there is no phone signal? Yes, it does, but you have to remember to sync. So when you go into the app, there is an option to sync. So I'm just going to open my app now so that I can explain exactly where it is. When you go into the app, I don't know if you can see that because it's a bit bright. No, you probably can't see that, but when you go into the app, basically literally on that first page it says sync now, and you can sync. So do this when you've got internet connection, press sync, go out and do whatever you're doing without any signal, which is how I have to work all the time because we don't get any phone signal in any of the fields around here. You can record everything. And then when you come back into reception or you pick up your Wi-Fi again, sync again, and then that will save everything. So you can do everything that you need to do without any mobile phone signal. But then when you come back to reception or Wi-Fi, you can just sync. You just need to remember to do that syncing. Otherwise, you'll lose everything that you've done. Right, I'm going to pause. Are there any questions either about the tests or about Soil Mentor or anything else more generally? Colin, yes, go ahead.
Okay, as nobody else has said, I think, yeah. Earlier on, Nikki, you talked about, I'm sure you talked about having communication during the week. Are there more webinars coming up or what?
Perfect, Colin. Yes, a beautiful segue into the next point I was going to make, which was about the WhatsApp group, which is running currently. We already have members in it. So Jenna runs a Soil Mentor Pasture for Life WhatsApp group, which you are all welcome to join. And it's great because it means that we can all share pictures of what we're doing this week and get a bit of help along the way if we need it. So that's a really good one thing I'd really recommend to do in terms of, you know, maintaining ongoing discussion and contact throughout the week. So if you want to join the WhatsApp group, you can email Jenna on jenna@pastureforlife.org, and Jenna will be, and if you just let Jenna have your mobile phone number, she can add you to the WhatsApp group. Pen asks a good question. What if you don't want to use WhatsApp? You can by all means use the forum. So if you're a Pasture for Life member, we'll get a forum thread up and running as well for this week, so that people can record any anything that they've seen or anything that they want to share on the Pasture for Life forum. If that's easier, we can definitely set up a forum thread for that. But yeah, the WhatsApp group, I guess, is quite useful because it's I guess maybe a little bit more immediate. But yeah, for some folk who don't like using it or don't have it on their phone, then we can make use of the member forum group. There are also a whole pile of events happening around the UK being run by our regional facilitators this week. And I will put in a moment a link to where those are bookable. We don't have anything in Scotland, I'm afraid, because we just ran 3 days of Soil Mentor training last month. But everywhere, well, not everywhere else across the UK, but there was a number of other events happening. And we can, yeah, I'll share the link to where you can book into those. We also have a webinar on Friday. So basically it's this again, just to see how you've all got on and if there are any questions. And Abby from Soil Mentor will be joining us for that as well. So Abby will be coming along to answer any questions that you have and also to discuss some of the findings that you've had. So because you all signed up to this through Eventbrite, I will send an email link that has all of that information in it after we finish today. So I'll send that email out so that you've got a link to where to book into the in-person events. You've got a reminder of Jenna's email address so you can contact her about joining the WhatsApp group, and also the booking details for Friday's webinar as well as a follow-up. So those are the different ways that you can stay in touch during the week, Colin. Hopefully that answered the question. Joanna.
Hello. If we get the app, can we have it on more than one phone, or do you have to get the app for each phone?
No, you can put it on more than one phone, and you can just designate different users. So, for example, I have my husband and I have the same Soil Mentor accounts, but I log in with my email address and he logs in with his email address. And the place where you can then see that kind of amalgamated information is on the web app. So when you log in through the website, you can then see all of that information together. And then it's able to kind of bring all the different field names together, and it's able to bring all of the results that you found on your test. So yeah, you can have it on multiple phones.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's actually a really useful thing. It's quite annoying as well sometimes when you also have to have the same login details or something. Whereas if you're a farm that's got different staff or anything like that, then it's really helpful that you can kind of, everyone has their own login, but it's all for that one account.
That's perfect. Thank you.
No worries. Are there any other questions? I guess one of the things that I wanted to say as well was that, you know, if you only get the opportunity to get out and dig one hole this week, then that would be brilliant. Like just getting some, you know, digging a hole and having a look and just seeing what's happening under the ground in one field is better than nothing. And it will just give you, actually you'll probably get bitten by the bug then, and you'll want to go and dig some more holes. And it can be really interesting to kind of compare different places in the same field. That's something that I try and do a lot if I'm out on other people's farms is, you know, if you're choosing different sample sites, you can take two different approaches. You can either make it really random. Quite a good way to do that is to chuck a ball. Don't take a spaniel with you if you do that though, because you'll never find where it landed. They'll bring it back too quick. And I've learnt this by not remembering that spaniels like playing with balls. But yeah, one way you can do it is to take a ball, chuck it in the field, and wherever it lands, that's where you dig your hole. So you can make it as random as you like. Or you can sort of be very clear on what's going on here. I've got a patch of a different type of plant here compared to over there. So you might want to start digging holes and making comparisons in places that are showing on the surface quite different plant communities. So you might want to start thinking, what's going on under the soil? Now, as I said, we've only suggested 4 different assessments. But actually there's loads that you can do. There are 10 regen indicators, and there are plenty of other soil tests as well, or soil sampling approaches you can take, which are all on the website, on the Soil Mentor website. And another really nice one to do is looking at soil aggregation. So being able to look for compaction, to look for whether the soil is aggregating into big chunky blocks, whether it's completely compressed and compacted, or whether you've got that nice kind of chocolate cake crumb soil that you might, you know, that's kind of what we all would love to have in every field. But inevitably we don't. So that's another really nice one as well. And something that I've been doing quite a lot recently with folk, when we go into fields that they tell me are really wet, so like, this is a really wet field, you know, we've had real issues with kind of, you know, water lying, dig a hole in a puddle as quick as you can and get that soil up. It's fascinating how often the soil underneath is dry. And quite often when we think about, it's been a wet week, or it's been a bit of a wet period, you know, our ground's really wet. Actually, what's fascinating is to see how far down that water isn't getting. And that can give you a very quick and easy kind of visualization of, actually, maybe there's a compaction issue here, or there's something else going on. It isn't just about the water being, you know, there's been a lot of rain, and so we've got issues. It can actually be about the infiltration that's the problem. And you can do your infiltration test, which is another great test, but you do need a bit of kit to kind of set that up, you know, like a tube and some water, and remembering to take all that with you, and a stopwatch as well. So yeah, but you can find the water infiltration test on the Soil Mentor app, website and app. But yeah, I mean, it's just an interesting thing. And sometimes, you know, just digging a hole and having a look without having to do any of the other assessments or the other samples is interesting in itself, just to see what's going on under the soil. I feel like I'm throwing lots of information at you all. I'm sorry if it's a lot to take in. Are there any other questions either about the app or the approach this week? No? Jenna, is there anything you want to add in terms of the WhatsApp group, or anything else that might be of interest?
I don't think so. I think you've covered quite a lot of it, but yeah, the last time we did it, the WhatsApp group was quite good for sort of comparing photos and chatting about what we'd found. So if you'd like to join that, do email me and I'll get you signed up for that. And likewise, we'll do something on the forum if you don't want to use WhatsApp.
Yeah, the photos were great, actually. I loved seeing all the different photos coming in. That was really, really nice to see. And it also is really useful just to kind of, just for comparison, not to kind of say anyone's soil's better. It's more just about, oh, that's different. Why is it different? That's interesting. And just exploring some of that in more detail.
Are we planning to, we shared some of those photos on social media last year. We're going to do that again this year.
Yeah, if you don't want us to share, if you want to share photos on the WhatsApp group, but you don't want them shared further, then do just let us know. But yeah, it's really nice for us to be able to sort of share anonymously. We basically just say, you know, this is what some of our Soil Challenge Week participants are finding this week. So it generally is, well, it's probably not very exciting to some people, but to me it's very exciting because it's normally just like hands holding earthworms or like soil. So there's generally not any people in it. It's just photos of soil. But if you don't want those to be shared, then yeah, then let us know. But otherwise, we'll probably make sure that our social media team can take some of those and share them a bit more widely. Excellent. Okay. For those of you that don't have Soil Mentor, obviously, as I said, you can join, you could set up your subscription. If you're a Pasture for Life member, you do get that discount. So if you just contact me via email, I can let you have the details of how to do all of that. We can get that organized. There is a different level of Soil Mentor available, which is cheaper, which isn't the Regen platform. So we give a discount on the £280 a year Regen platform, because that's the one where Nicole Masters gives you information. There is a cheaper version that we used to discount on, but I don't think that discount code is in use anymore because we've switched to the Regen platform. But yeah, there is that kind of cheaper option. The other alternative is, if you don't have it, just get involved this week without the app and see how you get on. And if you think, oh, actually, it would be really useful to have somewhere to store this, then, you know, that might give you the kind of the impetus to go ahead and purchase the subscription. Entirely up to you. As we said, there is no pressure to get the app if you don't have it. It's just about helping folk to digging some holes and having a look to see what's under the ground. I think that's probably everything I wanted to say. If there's any other comments or questions or points anyone wants to bring up? No? Yes, Colin?
I don't have the app, but Niels Corfield gave me a masterclass in digging holes last year. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And I did the challenge the end of last year. But when Niels was doing it with us, he was talking into the phone. And from what I saw after, when we went onto the website to look at the results, this was after he'd left, what he'd been saying into the phone was coming up as text on the website, on the Soil Mentor app. Now, is that a facility that's on the app that you can actually give descriptions into your phone?
Yeah, I think it works through your phone rather than as a feature of the app. So generally, I use an iPhone, not an Android, so I don't know how it works on Android. I should probably find this out. But basically, if there's like a notes section, anywhere that you can type on an iPhone, whenever your keyboard comes up, there's a little microphone icon, and you can press that and record your voice, so it becomes like a dictaphone rather than typing it in.
Right. So on the app, the keyboard would come up to allow you to type in. Ah, right.
Yes, yeah. So there are points on the app. Sometimes it'll ask you for like just to put in a number, which is pretty easy unless you've got soily hands. But then there's a note section, which is where your keyboard would come up and you could then then record into that. But no, that's a good point, because you would tend to get quite soily hands, as it were.
Thank you.
No worries. Okay, all right. Well, I think we'll finish there. Thank you so much for coming along. I also have this horrible dread inside me that it's lunchtime and I haven't been able to feed you because we're remote. So I don't like doing lunchtime things that are not in person, because I feel like you've given up your lunchtime to come in here chat without any sandwiches. So yeah, great. You've got a cup of tea. Someone's got a cup of something, which is good to see. Excellent. I'm glad. Oh, and Colin's also got had his lunch. Clearly, it's cleared the plate. So really, really glad you could join us. As I said, I'll send out all the information in relation to all of the other events and things that are happening this week in a second. And yeah, really look forward to having you join us to dig some holes this week, even if it's remotely and not in person. And thanks so much for coming along. And if there are any questions, just email me or Jenna, or get on the WhatsApp group once you've been added, and we can help you from there.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Lovely to see you all. Take care. See you soon. Bye.